friends, and we are back with everyone on the chat here. So just so you know, Chris, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yes, you've been seeing the chat stream through as well. What a lovely surprise.
Morning,
I don't know about you. I've missed it last week. Didn't you miss it?
Yes. I wouldn't know what to do with the rest of my day if it wasn't for that.
How was your weekend?
You know, I did some plumbing this week. Well, I say I did some plumbing. The bath was very slow draining. So on Sunday, I took off the cover of the bath. I took off the pipe underneath the bath.
Did you have your penny
and
on?
I unplugged the... No, I was wearing a tie at the time. And I took all the nasty stuff, I wasn't going to say nasty stuff, that was in the pipe, and it smelled awful. But I have now... And then I put the pipe back, yes, and I checked it was flowing properly. So I did, apart from cooking dinner and having a nice weekend, that was the highlight. It wasn't the highlight of my weekend, but it's quite entertaining that I didn't break the bath.
That is incredible because you answered my question. I was going to say, did you put the pipe back on?
I did, I tested it. I tested it so it didn't leak. Yeah, I did worry when I thought I'm not going to put it back on again. But,
everyone, I'm hoping your weekend was a bit more.
Did you have a nice weekend?
I had a great weekend, except Trump made it.
What happened?
So much more interesting. Normally, so I perform every Sunday, and normally no one really knows what I do in my real life. No one knows this Ange like all of you do, and Chris, of course. But for the first time ever, everyone was speaking about Greenland. And one person who will not be named, who wears a cap with semaphores on, so he and I get along like a house on fire. I love flags, as Shrimp Fred knows.
I don't know where you're going with this.
And Steve CDR. So he then told everyone else.
Can you read semaphore? Can you read?
I will not let that be revealed.
Oh.
But he told everyone else about what I did. So it suddenly became a question time for Ange on Sunday.
I get a bit of that.
So it was interesting. I had to gag that person quite quickly. But my weekend was great. I'm hoping that all of you are super excited because what a week ahead we have in store for you. I mean, what is not happening is the question. We've got obviously Trump in play and Greenland as well, but also Davos kicking off. We're about 4 or 5 hours in if you are one of the delegates, but if you're one of those people working there, then you're about 3 days in because people fly in on the Friday. But have a look at the start of the week. It's all red at the moment.
It is. It's a risk-off start of the week, unsurprisingly, because of the tariff threats. And I've just realised your bowl of cornflakes is still on the desk. There you go.
It is because
cinema verite we're going at the moment. Very much so, risk-off morning because Trump is back to warning about tariffs.
Yeah, and
his favourite subject in the whole world. In fact, not warning about tariffs. Obviously, he has implemented tariffs, and more to come. So this feels a bit like, for those of you who do remember, I say it like it was a long time ago. For those of you who remember April, obviously the tariff-related volatility. Markets reacted very, very badly. This is very modest reaction so far, but you've got a sense that it could escalate because we're expecting, and Angie's got a graphic here, we're expecting some kind of retaliation from Europe as well. So this is the key element to watch, really.
Exciting. So let's get you a timeline. I love the timeline here because, as you know, I like regime trading as well as investing as well. We've got, obviously, that announcement at the weekend, as Chris was outlining for you. And then, if all things remain equal, February 1st is when tariffs...
When they come in on February, yes, that's when they start, isn't it? And
10%.
then 25% is June, which seems an awfully long way away, doesn't it?
And June 1st is, unless a deal is reached, we will get 25% slapped on. But we've been here before, haven't we? We've been here before, and more likely than not, we're going to see retaliatory tariffs.
Yes, the FT reporting 93 billion euros in tariff retaliation. It's an interesting point because aside from the UK, sorry, I'm reminded not to tap the desk, aside from the UK, it's other countries in the EU, but not the entire EU. So there's a huge question about how you actually implement tariffs on specific countries in the EU when the whole system is designed. Obviously, it's one group. So unsurprisingly, this has been done on the back of a fag packet, as they say, and it's not really been thought through. So there are plenty of questions to be resolved, but clearly Macron has been apparently thumping the table.
He's thumped it.
proper
hardest, I
retaliation.
think, out of
Yes,
everyone.
and this is the key. Does Europe go for the way, if you like, the China approach, which is to stand up, to square up to the president and say no, or does it go for the deal approach and try and sort of work it out behind closed doors, which is, I think, the way that obviously the UK will take, because Starmer has pivoted around being the, if you like, the Trump whisperer of the European team, and seems to get results. Although you might argue with the weekend sort of undermines that narrative.
And this also really plays into Trump's the art of the deal.
Yeah.
Especially at this time, everyone, because we all know that all world leaders are currently in one place right now, conveniently. It used to be said in Davos that if you do not get your world leader interview within the first 3 days, then you are not going to get it. So let's give you a rundown as well in terms of timeline of key speeches in Davos this week. Tuesday, we got Ursula von der Leyen, European Commission President, along with Vice Premier of China, He Feng, and Macron himself will also be speaking that day. Wednesday, of course, is the big set piece. Trump is still expected to speak on Wednesday there. And we've got Merz and Herzog on Thursday, Israel and Germany. And then, of course, this week as well, we've got plenty of meetings as well. We've got the EU Leaders Summit on Thursday. But what I'm hearing on the grapevine is perhaps the most interesting thing is what's happening in the hallways amongst G7 leaders in Davos.
It should be a fun week in Davos. It should be.
I'd rather be here with the Beecham and not freezing in -20.
Well, yes, but you'd rather be a fly on the wall for the meeting, really.
Did you know that the badgers give you access to different areas?
Now, how would I know that?
And
You've been.
And the
In case nobody didn't realise that one, Angeline has been to Davos.
I have actually broken past a barrier before too.
Oh. Doesn't it really get you shot with so many people running around?
Not if you know the snipers.
We should talk about. We should talk about the week ahead itself.
Yes, the week ahead. It's jam-packed.
It is. It is one of those jam-packed weeks.
Take
Shall we
us
run
through.
I think you can see on my screen. I think. There we go. Obviously, it is Martin. I say obviously, if you'd not realised, it is Martin Luther King Day in the US. So US markets are closed. So it is a quiet start to the week, unsurprisingly. You just have Canada CPI. The main thing, perhaps, from this side of the Atlantic is the UK data. We're getting unemployment data tomorrow. We're expecting unemployment rate to be about 5.1%. And then CPI tomorrow. Sorry, Wednesday morning. I don't know what day it is. 7 a.m. CPI, and then Friday's retail sales from the UK. So that's the main focus this side. You've also got the German ZEW index in for 10 a.m. on Tuesday. But it is, of course, a GDP week for the US. Final reading GDP Q3. PCE price index, I'm legally required to state that one because it's my least favourite indicator in the world because I don't think it's important, but it is there on Thursday, the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. But then perhaps the biggie comes at the end of the week on the economic front. Bank of Japan, rates expected to be left unchanged at 0.75%. And you also get Japanese inflation. But with all this talk of intervention, and we didn't have a yen-intervention, as they call it, over the weekend because there was
intervention.
There was suggestion that MLK Day might be the time for the Bank of Japan to step in and do it. Lots of three-letter acronyms today, sorry. Today might have been the day for the Bank of Japan to deal with it, but maybe the Bank of Japan, the Ministry of Finance to do it. Sorry, the MOF, not the BOJ. I hope you're all keeping up at home.
Keep up with the acronyms.
Keep up with the acronyms. But it's possible that the Bank of Japan sounds more hawkish, and that's enough maybe to give the yen a bit of a lift and slow this rise. As ever with dollar yen, it's more about the speed of the movement than the actual direction. So if dollar yen continues to gently rise, they are less bothered. If it suddenly takes a big jump, then that's when I think the Ministry of Finance starts to get worried. So that's perhaps the key consideration here. And you could argue it's kind of not fruitless to do it anyway because you're fighting against global markets, but it is perhaps limited in its scope and effectiveness. But that's what we have for the economic data. Oh, no, sorry. PMIs on Friday as well, as ever, flash PMIs day on Friday.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to be a really interesting reading, given it comes at the time when EU leaders are also meeting at the EU Leaders Summit. And we've also got a huge amount of earnings Yeah, let's have a look at my chart here. Here's the earnings whispers chart. Thank you to Luke Moore for sending this to me. But we've got Netflix, the biggie, after the close on Tuesday. We've also got Intel, of course, on Thursday. Which of you or Axel, writing Intel up?
We've covered, I think we're covering Intel. We've certainly covered Netflix. That's on the website. It is obviously the first of the tech names. Banks were a bit mixed last week, weren't they, really?
Yeah.
A slightly disappointing start overall to the season. JP Morgan was good, but everyone else sort of didn't really meet expectations. But as I say, Netflix is the key one to watch this week. And then on the UK front, I've got them on the week ahead. You have various names reporting, but you've got Rio Tinto, Kinetic tomorrow.
Over to Chris's,
if you've got my
board.
screen, hopefully. I'll just keep talking. Burberry, there you go. Burberry on Wednesday. Galliford Try, the newly rechristened Aberdeen with all the vowels back in again on the Wednesday. JD Sports, Currys, Weatherspoons, B&M European Value. That was one that had that nasty profit warning last year, so watch out for that one. And SSP. You should also point out, if your commodities into that kind of thing, then you've got Halliburton on Wednesday for oil, and then Freeport McMoran on Thursday for copper prices. Copper, of course, being one of the key trades to watch this year. Everyone and his mother really expects copper to go up this year. And so very much an interesting comment from them to keep an eye out for.
I've been calling copper since last summer, ahead of Dr. Copper, and also it is my biggest position in my entire metals complex, my biggest position by far, bigger than even silver. Those of you trading silver on Friday, what a wild ride. I sold very early. You heard me here on Wednesday when I spoke to Axel and I said I'm de-risking, and I bought silver back cheap on Friday, but now I'm kicking myself. I should have bought a bit more. Silver, just a heads up.
Hindsight is 2020, actually.
I know. It's a wonderful thing, isn't it? For those of you that know silver very well, you'll find that shopping tends to, or buying back tends to be quite good in the last hour. Speaking of which, Alcoa used to be the company that used to kick off the earnings.
Yeah, it did in the
party.
dim and distant past, and then it was
Yes.
kicked out of the Dow. Nobody really notices it anymore. I mean, nobody really cared about it before then anyway, but it was just Alcoa.
Yeah, kicks it
Begins
off.
with A, starts the season. There we go. Not a bad performance though this year, of course. Commodities.
Yeah.
And
Aluminium, the power play.
yes, or aluminum as the Americans. Greenland. That's the other thing that annoys me. It's Greenland. I don't
is
like the way the
Greenland.
Americans say Greenland.
Yeah, Greenlanders. Yeah, Greenland.
A frustrating exercise. When was Alcoa kicked out of the Dow? I can't remember. I think it was
It was a very dim and distant past.
mid-2010s. Dim and distant past.
2015.
Answers on a postcard.
Anyone that knows, please put it in the chat or let us know. But the one that I'm very interested in is Intel, because I have been looking at the charts with a really good chartist friend of mine,
2013,
long
sorry,
time.
was
There you
the-
go, not far. 2015 was my guess.
There you go.
Alcoa, there we are. And we looked at Intel together. This is last week, because the weekly chart is giving us some very interesting signals. You all know I love a triple top and triple bottom here. I get very excited when, who was it? Sean Morrison that said, Andrew, I can't talk about bottoms for you because the last time I did, I got hauled into HR. Remember that? But here we are, Intel weekly view there. You can see that it's just come off. Thank you, gallery. I heard that chuckle there. Thank you, Giannis. You're awake this morning. Phil, are you awake? And you can see that on the weekly, as of middle of July, we have that nice uptrend there that has
Coming off 14-year lows.
yeah, and we had that very nice base there, and I've put a golden yellow line there, so it's easy for you to see what I am talking about. And it bounced off, and we're now having this nice uptrend. If it continues in this fashion, then we could, trying to extend my chart, my line there, so that you can see it. We could be in for quite a nice ride.
It's very dangerous when you start extending lines. But it's two things to note, of course. One, it's come an awful long way in a very short space of time. Even on a weekly chart, that's what more than doubled since those lows. Was it November? No, earlier than that, wasn't it? August. That's the first thing to monitor. And then, of course, we are back now at that price level. I can't quite see it on the screen. Is it the 5,000 that it was, or $50? Sorry.
Yes, and always look left.
Mid 2020. Sorry, the end of 2023. So the last time we were up here it was a nasty reversal, which is not to say it can happen again, but it's merely sort of flagging this once again as an area of interest that you've just got to be a little bit cautious here. It's moved an awful long way. It might look a little bit exhausted, I think is the way to look at it. So that's that one. I should see if I can grab, while you're doing that, I'll grab the Netflix chart because that's the other one we need to...
Yeah. But bear in mind too that if you are intraday or short term, this tends to kind of like almost gravitating back to that trend line that I've drawn there. So in terms of a short term trade, this might be one that you want to look at. In terms of a more medium term, then yes, as Chris was saying, just bear in mind that you have that area of resistance coming up, last seen December 2023. Right, over to Netflix.
Netflix, of course, the very miserable, performance since the end of June. You can see this. When I drew this chart a few weeks ago, we were down 28%, so we're down for about 30% now from those record highs. But of course, you have to put these moves in context. Since the May 2022, and notably Netflix started to recover long before the broader market in 2022. The rest of the market really sold off into the autumn, and this one recovered and continued to recover before the rest of the market, which is an interesting sign of strength. But the way they moved, they gained 786%. So of course, the way percentages work is they're great on the way up and they're painful on the way down. You might have lost a third since the record high in the summer, but you're still up massively from where you were in 2022. And I suppose the question is now, at what point, and obviously at the moment it's not really a propitious time for risk on, given the tariff news is back in effect. But it's very interesting to watch Netflix coming into earnings. So we're at the lowest level now since April. So all of this gain since May has been retraced, but it'd be very interesting to watch because this is what uptrends do. You have the huge explosive move higher. It goes and goes and goes. At some point, it has to have a nasty period of retracement, and the price will tell us what to think over the course of time. Netflix continues to get cheaper. What seemed like a decent pullback turn is something a bit more dramatic, really.
That's right, because trees do not grow into the sky. Pay attention to this, especially. I know many of you have got a long-term hold on Netflix. Some of you bought February 2026 call at 104. And also bear in mind that Trump and Netflix don't see eye to eye. I, however, my hand has been forced, Chris. It's been forced in order to watch Stranger Things 5.
Oh.
I know I'm late to the game.
Never seen it.
I know. But I have to finish that series. And so I now have subscribed to Netflix. I'm now subscribed back in after...
Oh, you unsubscribed, didn't you?
I unsubscribed because they ramped up my subscription so rapidly. A bit like their share price from around 2022 to 2025. And given I was a late joiner, I held off for as long as I could. I felt a bit upset that within 6 months they'd ramped me up to, prices people were just, paying after they'd been with them for a very long time. And I had the introductory fee of $7.99.
You weren't allowed to.
Within 6 months, it doubled. Right. So for all of you that are watching, here are some interesting things to bear in mind. I spent a lot of the weekend. I feel a bit like I haven't had enough sleep, although I have. But I've been thinking about these trade ideas in my head whilst getting loads of messages from my mates on the defense front and also from the other side of the pond. What if, and please poke holes in my theory. I see Chris slightly rolling his eyes here.
As a historian, I always panic at the phrase, what if?
What if, actually, the one person that is being sent by the UK there, and we know that several missions have already come back from other countries to Greenland. What if this is a compliance mission as opposed to, right, we're going to show that we are concerned by...
What do you mean a compliance mission?
Well, the Americans, this is just a theory. will kind of tell the Europeans, well, you just pretend you're a bit knocked, but actually we're doing you a favor, guys. We're doing you a favor. We're making sure that Russia doesn't get their hands and China doesn't get their hands on Greenland.
But there's already a way of doing that. If you look at the US bases in Greenland were 10 times the size they are now back in 1990. So it's very easy to reinforce them.
But at that point, they couldn't dig the ground, whereas now they will.
Yeah, but it's still horrendously expensive. It's still horrendously expensive. I think it probably still ends in some kind of deal that he can sell to having ramped this up, because this is a president that faces midterms. He's very unpopular. This is why US presidents always default to foreign policy in the second term, because it's more fun, basically, than grubbing around domestically. But it's a kind of diversion from other things, shall we say, that go on domestically, to try and boost his poll ratings. Banging the drum for Greenland makes him look strong. But I think it still ends in some kind of deal with Denmark. And you have to go, this is the Trump playbook, you have to go towards the extreme end of things to get what you want. And it's exactly the way it works. It's just always shocking every time to see these norms upended. There was a good Republican strategist on the radio the weekend saying the problem with Trump is that he thinks outside the box in terms of foreign policy. Sometimes that yields good results, like getting NATO to spend more on defence, which is what American presidents have been trying to do since the end of the Cold War, to no effect. So he did it in an extreme way, but he got what he wanted. Unfortunately, it also yields bonkers things like Greenland. And this is one of them at the moment, obviously. And I think the risk for Europe is that it responds very, very strongly and escalates it. It has to tread a very fine line here, I think.
So based on this, you are with the camp that says lots of drama, lots of fireworks, but essentially a taco.
It's a sound and fury, but at some point, if he gets a deal that Denmark can offer them something, I think it was suggested it would cost them 700 billion to buy Greenland. I mean, it's a very, because Greenland, it's obviously sovereign in the sense of it decides its own domestic issues. It probably costs a lot of money to run, but I think it's the sovereignty element that Denmark, if Greenland really had an independence referendum, if we want to be independent, then Denmark would say yes. But if the question is, if they were independent, what would then happen is the problem.
Have you been to Greenland?
No, good Lord, no.
I've been to the Greenland Investment Summit, which funnily enough takes place
more exciting
in
than
London.
it sounds.
A lot of them actually look like me, just bigger versions. Not fat, just bigger versions, wearing sort of Inuit stuff. And actually they're climate and there's just not enough people there. Just not enough people, not enough jobs. Someone on our trading floor actually came up with, why doesn't Trump just offer each Greenlander something like $1 million US, and then give them some way of making bits of Alaska home, and then they'll clear out anyway. That was from someone from our floor. No names shall be mentioned here. Another analyst I spoke to said that actually, should investors look at this as that there will be short-term pain for European exporters, but this is a great moment for the EU to come up with an anti-coercion instrument. If not now, then when?
Yes, if not now, then when?
If not now, then when, right? At some point, a line has got to be drawn. So the basis of this means short-term pain for European exporters, says this particular analyst, and long-term outlook for the European economy and European security is significantly improved in the longer term.
We should talk about the VIX briefly, I think, because it's been rallying for the past 2 weeks. In fact, since early January, we've had this steady recovery. It is even nowhere near the levels we saw back in November. And of course, when it wants to move in that direction, it does so very, very quickly. So the reaction is still relatively contained at this point. But it is notable, it is now coming up on 2 months since the last sustained spike in the VIX. And so in the same way that we're kind of due some kind of correction in markets, we're probably due another little VIX spike that could take us up back in the direction of the low 20s. And then in that sense, maybe we're due, this is your Dow chart. This was back in where we are. There's November's pullback of about 2,000 points. We then rally, eyes on 50,000, and then it started to come off again. Even now, the futures are off their overnight lows, although really you've got to be very careful today because of Martin Luther King Day. But it's been a while since the last pullback. Markets looking overextended. The Nikkei actually is holding up very, very well. But European markets may be the ones to watch for more retaliation. Even they are off the overnight lows. But certainly markets have gone a good while without a burst of volatility. It doesn't have to be the next April 2025. It doesn't have to be 20% down. It could be 5, 6, 7% down, and then it recovers. So this, if as we think, it always makes sense to never to assume catastrophe with these things. Over the last, you and I have seen these crises
over and
over again. The world is ending. It's going to be terrible. It's the next 2008, or over the last 5 years, the next 2020, whatever, and then it isn't. And the bandwagon rolls on. So you should maybe expect some volatility. And when people talk about volatility, it essentially means stuff going down. I think that's what you could expect for markets as we sort of price in the EU reaction and then the US counter reaction and so on and on and on. But overall, this doesn't look like yet the beginning of something much more sustained, but we are probably overdue at least a 5% move.
Isn't it also saying, Chris, that if the world's going to come to an end, you go long. You never go short.
Yeah, it was the late great Art Cashin was saying when he was a very young dealer on the New York Stock Exchange. I think it was, or was it the Chicago floor? Someone at home will know. It was the Cuban Missile Crisis, and he was rushing around trying to sell things.
SIBO, I think.
Yeah, and his boss essentially said, "What's the point? Because either you won't be around to collect, or B, things will get better. So you shouldn't really just go shorting into a nuclear crisis." But yes, it was his point that he was able to wheel out because he'd seen enough of these crises before.
Now, just remember, the EU leaders are going to discuss these options at the Emergency Summit on Thursday. And also, we've got the Pentagon readying 1,500 troops for potential deployment to Minnesota.
Interesting, of course, these are from the 11th Airborne, which is this specifically Arctic trained. But they have been told specifically it's a Minnesota and not Greenland. But it's it's odd that they picked the ones that are trained for Arctic warfare. But read into that what you will. But yes.
And we've got loads of fantastic comments now coming through. For those of you that are now joining, just to let you know that we see your comments. Chris and I see all your comments.
We see you.
We see you. We see you. We're having to do it at the end, because there's so much to cover at the moment. Friar Tux Heavenly saying Trump already has a Patufic space base, full air base in northern Greenland.
Yes, that's the one base they do have. If you look at the map of Greenland bases 30 years ago, it was far more extensive. But Trump goes on about, I've seen Russian destroyers, I've seen Chinese destroyers near Greenland. He's hallucinating because there aren't any Chinese destroyers near Greenland. But it's just his obsession. And I think he would have tried this in his first term, but then there were enough people around him to say, no, have you considered not doing this crazy thing? But now there's no pushback. Even Besson over the weekend is prepared to go out and say, oh no, we do need to do it. And there's no stopping him. So that's what's different this time around.
What is different this time around as well is we get to watch this, you and I, from comfy chairs that Lee S100 says we need cigars and glasses of cognac.
Early in the morning.
Yes.
Even for me.
Yeah. Thank you very much. For those of you, any comments and thoughts below on the trade ideas and the themes that we've just talked about, Chris and I, please pop them in the chat below. We'd love to hear your comments, or always messages on ask@ig.com. We will get back to you as soon as we can. Any questions not too difficult. All right, whatever you're doing this week or today, stack the favor in your odds. The odds in your favor. I do need that coffee.
You get the words in the right order.
Yes. All right, we've got Axel coming up on Trade of the Week, so make sure you look out for that as well. Our new home is, of course, the IG _UK YouTube site, where you'll find all our fantastic material curated beautifully for you.